Just look around you now, and what is your experience? Or let me ask you it in a different way in order to guide the conversation a bit. Look around you now. Do you experience anything of a world other than the experience of seeing, or seeing and touching? Seeing and touching and hearing.
No.
Yes. We think that we see a world, and that the experience of seeing takes place here, but the seen world takes place there. But can you find these two things in your experience? One, the experience of seeing, and two, the object seen.
No, I have no access to it other than through the experiencing.
When you say, I have no access to it other than experiencing or seeing, you're implying that it's there,
Exactly.
but that you don't have access to it.
Right.
How do you know it's there?
The only thing I keep coming back to when I really try as hard as I can to examine this is all my experience and senses working together. So, for example, I don't know that something's three-dimensional unless I've touched it. So it's sight and touch and perhaps sound as well working together. So it seems to be all of my
So what you're saying
experience.
is because the experience of seeing, hearing and touching all give me consistent reports, therefore what they are reporting must be independent of seeing, touching and hearing. They all seem to confirm the outside world because the evidence from each of these three sources corroborate one another.
Yes.
Yeah. And you interpret the evidence as evidence of an outside world. You not only say, not only is seeing, hearing and touching consistent, not only do they give me information about a consistent world, moreover, there are 75 other people that report evidence that is consistent with my experience. Therefore, we must all be experiencing the same world. But why couldn't you take the same evidence and use it to support a completely different model of experience, which is this, that each of our 75 finite minds, and by finite minds I mean a mixture in this context of seeing, hearing and touching. Let's just call that all the finite mind. Each of our 75 finite minds is precipitated from within the same field of consciousness. And it is because each of our minds is precipitated or downloaded from the same field of consciousness that they experience the same world. In other words, each of our minds is informed by the same source of information. And because they all come from the same source, they all give evidence of the same world. Just like if 6 different people are watching the 9 o'clock news, they all see the same thing. Why? Because the program is downloaded from the same source.
I can see this other possibility that you present and work with it sometimes, but it still doesn't somehow get me to that place where there is no world there.
Well, show us the world that you're referring to, that you're so convinced. Show it to us now. Point to it.
Well, I know this is, you're going to pull this apart, but it feels like this.
Okay, feeling. yeah?
In this case, yes.
Feeling, yeah, is that right?
Feeling and seeing.
Feeling and seeing. Let's take feeling first. Where does the experience of feeling take place?
Within my awareness, or within awareness.
Okay, so the experience of feeling, right there, it's obvious that feeling doesn't give us an evidence of the outside world because you say it takes place in awareness. Where does the experience of seeing take place?
The same.
So go back to the outside world. Show us the outside world that you're talking about. Point to it. Or point to
This is exactly
the experience that you're having that seems to give you evidence of an outside world.
This is my dilemma.
I know it is. That's why I'm asking you the question.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. I can't argue with you, but nevertheless, every fiber of my years of experience doesn't seem convinced.
Yeah, it's just called years of conditioning. You're right. Every fiber of your many years of conditioning is at odds with what is being suggested here. Your experience is not at odds with what is being suggested here. Your experience, I'm just describing your experience for you,
Right.
but it is in conflict with your conditioning. And that is the problem.
Yes, so what I'm asking is then, how does that get
Well,
that
you have to
conflict
make the
get
choice.
loosened up?
Am I going to believe my experience, or am I going to believe my conditioning? I mean, your conditioning is the conditioning of Western culture.
Yes.
Look at Western culture. I mean, is it so highly sophisticated and intelligent? I mean, why do you believe what Western culture tells you about your experience? I mean, look around at our culture. Is it so intelligent? If a being from another culture was to land in the United States, would they look around and think, wow, these people are really smart, that they live such harmonious, loving, beautiful lives. They're also kind to one another.
So
they treat
intelligent.
their environment and their animals so nicely. I mean, is that what they would think?
No, I'm certainly not going to defend Western culture.
But your dilemma is whether to believe the conditioning that you have received at the hands of Western culture, or whether to believe your experience. That's where it's at for you.
So today, when you said awareness, where we were, I believe that you were talking about awareness, it's not something and it's not nothing. I hadn't heard you say that before.
Well, that was because I was trying in this very minute way to completely dissolve in a very detailed way, but in a very experiential way, our conviction that there is something other than consciousness. So we think there are things. We think there is something, and in reference to that belief, we conceptualize awareness as nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we think there are things, called objects, that is, subtle things, thoughts and feelings, or material things, bodies and objects. And then as opposed to that, we think we conceptualize consciousness as being not a thing, empty, void.
Yes.
And then we end up with statements such as form is emptiness and emptiness is form, which is a legitimate statement, but it's basically saying nothing is something and something is nothing.
Right.
But these ideas are they are said in response to the belief that there are things. So the teaching makes a concession to that belief and says, okay, you think there are things. That which is aware of these things is not itself a thing. So it postulates awareness as nothing, empty or void. So we now have emptiness and form, nothing and something, which is a legitimate distinction to make as a concession to the belief there are things. But having made this distinction between emptiness and form, between nothing and something, we then have to, and this is what we were doing this morning, we were really exploring, not intellectually, although it was spoken in intellectual terms, but the exploration itself was very experiential. I was trying to guide you on an actual exploration of the relationship between things and nothing, between something and nothing. And hence we explored, how is it possible for something to arise out of nothing? Is it possible for something to disappear into nothing? How is it possible for nothing to become something? We were exploring this in our experience to see that that's actually not how it's happened. Nothing cannot become something.
Yes.
Something cannot disappear into nothing. Therefore, the reality of experience is neither something nor nothing. If we think it's something, then it's legitimate as a halfway stage to say reality is nothing, not a thing. But then that's a halfway stage. We then have to go beyond that and say reality is neither something nor nothing. And as I said this morning, the mind can't go further than that because the mind thinks in terms of opposites, something and nothing.
Well, actually, that helps me a lot because my mind actually seems much happier in that non-dual place, or that non-binary place, and where it's a kind of liminal zone, I guess, between no something or something. I don't even know how to. I can't put it in words because the words are binary. But that it's like a. You talk about precipitation, it's like just before the precipitate shows itself. If I'm thinking of something condensing out of a liquid. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. It's right on the edge. And it to me, that's, I guess I have been thinking awareness is emptiness, nothing. So if it's got that no, not something, not nothing, that feels much more spacious to me.
See, even to call it awareness is to call it awareness as opposed to an object. The only reason it is necessary to conceptualize awareness is in response to our prior conceptualization of the object. Okay, if we've conceptualized objects, then we can conceptualize the awareness that is aware of that. So all of these teachings arise in response to our beliefs and feelings. If we didn't conceptualize objects in the first place, it wouldn't be necessary to conceptualize awareness. So all the teaching arises as a response to beliefs, ideas, feelings, situations. And it's legitimate for the teaching to make these provisional statements. Awareness is empty, etc. Emptiness is form, because they're all true relative to the belief that they are responding to. But in the absence of a question or a situation, there is no teaching. It's because ultimately it's not possible to conceptualize reality, which is why I said earlier, quoted the Shankaracharya saying, real thinkers don't think. In other words, people that have really taken thought all the way, thought comes naturally to an end because reality cannot be conceptualized or named. That is the ending of thought. Thought has brought itself to its own end. It's not a disciplined end. It's a natural end. Thought has, it's like a candle. All the wax has been burnt. There's no more fuel. The flame just comes to an end. There's nothing else left to burn. There's nothing else left to think about. So thought just comes to an end.
So when you talk about conceptualizing objects, the alternative is pure experiencing?
No, it's necessary to conceptualize objects. It is the natural state. Otherwise, we would just remain like animals or infants. There would just be a undifferentiated mass of experiencing. It is necessary to separate oneself out and arrive at the I am the body experience. That is, we're in objects here. We're separating out experience. Right. It is a necessary stage. The ego is a natural stage that we pass through. But what is natural is to carry on passing through that stage and arrive at the recognition of our true nature.
Right. So would that be pure experiencing?
No, that's pure awareness.
Pure awareness.
Pure experiencing is what the fish and the bird and the newborn infant experience.
Ah, okay.
And what Finn is experiencing now. Finn doesn't know that he is a dog, that he is lying in a room. For Finn, as far as we know, forgive me, Finn, for talking on your behalf, but as far as we know, Finn's experience is one undifferentiated mass of experience that is not separated out into me, a dog, and everyone and everything else. In other words, Finn doesn't have an ego. He hasn't developed the I am the body experience. He is in a pre-egoic condition. There is only experience.
Okay.
And that is not the same as the one who has recognized the nature of all experience to be infinite consciousness. Mm-hmm. Although in both cases, in Finn's case, there is just experience. In the case of the one who has recognized the true nature of experience, there is just consciousness. In both cases, there's only one thing. There are some similarities between the pre-egoic condition and the post-egoic condition. Which is why it's sometimes said that the sage is childlike.
Right, right. I was confused on your use of the words. So, if for now I understand or work with pure consciousness or pure awareness as not something, not nothing, is that appropriate? Or is that still?
No, because once you're conceptualizing awareness, then you're in the realm of conceptualization. That's fine, and it's best to say that awareness is not a thing. It is nothing. It's not possible. Try now to think of something that is neither something nor nothing. You can't. It's not possible.
No, I think what I like about that is it leaves a little room for something.
Sorry?
It leaves a little room for something.
It leaves a little room for something, yes.
I think that's why that attracts me.
Yes, so as long as you're thinking about awareness, you're thinking of something, and it's best to think that awareness is not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're conceptualizing awareness, we are already in duality. We are already.
Yes.
And from that point of view, it's best to recognize that awareness is nothing, not a thing. No thing, not a thought, not a feeling, not a sensation or a perception.
Thank you.